players like Deja Kelly and others that want to get this thing done and want to play games. So for you to say everybody's on the same page was a complete lie. Now, here's Adam Silver. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said Tuesday night he is tracking WNBA collective bargaining sessions very closely, and that he and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum would both be willing to join the prolonged negotiations to finalize a deal. That means when Mark Tatum is getting involved, the guy
Adam Silver positioned himself directly within the WNBA's collective bargaining talks, abandoning any pretense of neutrality. The NBA commissioner clearly stated his stance. Players must find middle ground to ensure games continue. This mirrors what Caitlin Clark advocated just weeks earlier when she distanced herself from the Players Association. Now basketball's most influential figure supports her viewpoint, while league co-founders desperately protect their off-season enterprise.
This October comment, Silver also said he has great relationships with many of the players and believes the sides are on course for a solution. The current 40-day extension ends January 9th, and that date is fastly approaching. Okay, he says, I remain optimistic we'll get something done, but whether that means I'm physically sitting at the table for the negotiation, Silver said. And again, I speak for Mark as well. We have been involved with this league for 3 decades. In essence, I care enormously about it and want it to be successful, and I want the players to feel fairly treated as well. And I realize there's been a disconnect, especially over the last few months in these negotiations.
Silver's involvement carries weight beyond simple assistance. He explicitly called for mutual understanding and necessary concessions. He acknowledged WNBA players merit substantial pay increases, given the league's growing prosperity, notably absent from his remarks any reference to the 50-50 revenue division the Players Association demands. Silver emphasizes concrete monetary gains, not percentage-driven calculations. This directly undermines the union's primary negotiating strategy. His December 17th comments at the NBA Cup Finals in Las Vegas arrived with just 3 weeks before the January 9th CBA extension deadline. Sources describe a substantial divide. Players seek 30% of league revenue, while the WNBA proposes 50%. Silver instructed both parties toward compromise while dismissing the players' calculation methodology entirely.
That's what we want and how we feel. And now let's get to the actual video so we can get more dialogue of what Breanna Stewart had to say. They trying to hardball. The owners aren't going to give in to all this nonsense. They're trying to hardball, these players are. And at the end of the day, Adam Silver is with Caitlin Clark. Y'all need to compromise and get this damn deal done and stop playing games.
Hey, Stewie. Good to see you. I had 2 questions. The first, Adam Silver spoke ahead of the Cup and said that if necessary, he'd be up for coming to the bargaining table, him and Mark Tatum. I'm just wondering, do you think that would be beneficial? Would there be value to having Adam's presence at the bargaining table? What are your thoughts there?
Examine Breanna Stewart's reaction closely. Her admission that current approaches yield nothing reveals the Players Association's failed aggressive tactics. After opting out of the CBA in October, expecting league capitulation on revenue sharing, they've exhausted 2 extensions and watched expansion announcements proceed without their input. Now they confront the NBA commissioner potentially joining negotiations directly. Stewart expresses enthusiasm about Silver's participation, but frames it around ensuring everyone grasps player desires and emotions. This language suggests uncertainty rather than confidence in their position. She hopes Silver will pressure ownership toward concessions. Yet Silver already revealed his intentions, forcing porfings that ensures game continuity, not mandating equal revenue splits.
What we're doing right now isn't really getting us anywhere, so if that means that Adam and Mark need to come to the table, we're more than happy to have that, and just making sure everybody understands what we want and how we feel, and realizing that both things can be true together. Everybody can agree and get what they want out of this, but there has to be some mutual, some things in common happening first. So yeah, if Adam wants to come, I would love to have him.
The situation grows complex for players as Stewart concedes mutual satisfaction remains possible, but requires reciprocal actions first. Consider this shift. The The Players Association spent months treating revenue sharing as non-negotiable principle. They mocked Silver's October comments about absolute versus percentage increases on social media. They framed this as an equity and justice battle, yet now their prominent spokesperson publicly accepts that compromise demands concessions from everyone. This represents a significant withdrawal from the union's public position and creates difficulties for players like Stewart and Nafisa Collier, who established Unrivaled as prolonged negotiations increasingly expose their unequal advocacy for all players.
Obviously was announced, and the season is going to run from fall to April, which is in direct competition with Unrivaled. What were your immediate thoughts when you heard about Project B? And what's the long-term answer for the landscape of women's basketball? Is it to have one premier league? Is it to continue developing all of these leagues? Like, what is truly the answer? What is the ideal world for the women's basketball landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think my immediate thoughts when I saw Project B, I was kind of like, well, they saw what worked. You know, they saw the success that we had here at Unrivaled, and they, you know, they wanted to be a part of that in their own way and try to do it. But at the same time, knowing, you know, what we're doing here is really special.
This moment exposes the genuine division. When questioned about Project B, the new 3-on-3 league running fall through April directly competing with Unrivaled's winter schedule, Stewart suggests Project B copied Unrivaled's successful elements for their own purposes. She then emphasizes Unrivaled's uniqueness through equity stakes, resources, and single-city operations, missing from her response acknowledgement that Project B's timeline better complements the WNBA season, or that players can now maintain overseas careers while returning for complete WNBA seasons. She simply dismisses it as copying while promoting Unrivaled's advantages. This represents promotion rather than analysis, revealing the underlying conflicts driving these negotiations.
But just making sure the resources, people are staying in one city. Yeah, we'll have like a tour stop in Philly this year, but making sure that we're prioritizing players and their bodies and their health. And as for a long-term solution, I don't know the answer. Because it's like now you have all these options. You have Unrivaled, you have WNBA potentially happening in its normal season.
Stewart's admission that WNBA season integration with other commitments requires universal agreement, while acknowledging they're nowhere near consensus and her current priority remains Unrivaled, encapsulates the entire problem. The Players Association negotiates for all WNBA players, while their leadership simultaneously operates a competing league benefiting from shortened WNBA seasons and protected winter schedule. Clark identified this conflict weeks ago, arguing players must compromise because basketball must be played. The implication targeted players prioritizing off-season ventures over their primary employer. Commissioner Engelbert's claims of player unity were false. Players like Deja Kelly supported Clark's stance, prompting Silver's intervention as negotiations stalled due to these exact conflicts.
Rated at the league office, Silver said ahead of NBA Cup final in Las Vegas. I talk to the people who are at the negotiating table on a daily basis, and I've said before, we, the NBA, WNBA collective, acknowledge that our players deserve to be paid significantly more than they have so far based on the increased success of the league, and it's just a question now of finding a meeting of the minds in terms of what is a fair deal. It's going to require
Silver and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum's willingness to join negotiations signals the NBA treating this as serious business crisis. Tatum's involvement in league operations and international strategy means he addresses threatened deals requiring investment protection, not routine labor discussions. The WNBA's historic expansion includes Golden State next season, Toronto and Portland in 2026, plus new media contracts worth $2.2 billion over 11 years, starting in 2025. They cannot risk work stoppages or fractured player relationships during this growth phase, but also cannot establish precedents where players control operations through unrealistic revenue demands for a loss operating league. Silver arrives to impose solutions rather than negotiate options, a compromise both sides can accept moving forward. This will likely include substantial salary increases, improved travel conditions, enhanced benefits, possibly revenue sharing tied to profitability rather than gross earning. It excludes the association's demand for 30% revenue regardless of league finances. For Clark specifically, her union break reflected understanding this reality. WNBA growth is genuine but delicate, requiring maximum games and exposure to capitalize on momentum. Season threats or negative publicity undermine progress. Clark recognizes this because she drives the growth. Her games average 1.2 million viewers versus 400,000 league average without her. Her compromise demands aren't selfish but realistic about actual leverage sources. Silver sees identically, hence his comments about increased success and absolute dollar growth, acknowledging deserved player increases while clarifying growth measures in dollars, not percentages. Current WNBA revenue approximates $200 million, 30% equals $60 million among 144 players, averaging $417,000 each. Except operating costs, team expenses, expansion fees, and facility investments make 30% mathematics impossible and 15% barely viable given current financial structures. Silver understands this through NBA's identical evolution toward 50-50 revenue sharing only after wild profitability and decades of financial stability. The WNBA's 28-year existence just began approaching viability, demanding NBA-level revenue splits now resembles demanding penthouses while barely leaving parents' basements. The Players Association cornered themselves by framing economics as equity and fairness rather than business, making gender rather than financial arguments, preventing retreat without appearing to surrender. Engelbert's unity lies maintain necessary illusion because cracks destroy entire negotiating strategies, except cracks already exist. Clark created them, basketball-focused players widen them, and Silver prepares complete shattering by forcing both sides toward reality. Reality confirms WNBA players deserve increases while acknowledging leagues cannot afford revenue percentage payments, ignoring profitability. Both truths coexist. Compromise means simultaneous acceptance. Coming weeks will see Players Association accept deals including significant raises without revenue sharing, or watch Silver and Tatum impose frameworks neither side loves but both survive, representing actual compromise. Not everyone getting desires but everyone receiving livable terms, enabling forward progress. Stewart's unrivaled focus explains negotiation stalls. Players who should maximize WNBA growth instead concentrate on side ventures, while growth-invested players like Clark call for compromise. League commissioners side with Clark while preparing forced resolutions. This transcends right versus wrong toward understanding moments. WNBA possesses historic momentum primarily driven by one player bringing casual fans into previously ignored league. These fans ignore CBA negotiations or revenue formulas, caring only about watching Clark play basketball. Negotiations resulting in shortened seasons, delayed starts, or any viewing disruptions will eliminate casual fans as quickly as they appear. This constitutes leverage, explaining Silver's intervention backing Clark's position, because worst WNBA growth outcomes involve labor disputes, reminding casual fans why they avoided women's basketball before Clark's arrival. Neither league nor players can afford regression, despite some not realizing yet. Questions remain whether Players Association accepts compromise before Silver imposes one, or forces his hand, risking appearances of prioritizing off-season leagues over main product. This narrative builds irreversibly regardless of actual CBA terms. Damage becomes permanent. January 9th approaches in 3 weeks, with Silver clearly refusing season delays. Deals will happen voluntarily or forcibly. Stewart's comments suggest recognition of overestimated leverage. Now they must choose available victories over desired outcomes. Silver and Tatum's table presence will either prompt immediate union capitulation or final revenue sharing attempts. More importantly, Clark must navigate deal announcements, maintaining silence or vindication. These negotiations will teach expensive lessons about leverage versus wishful thinking differences.